dawn in Sevastopol, Russian radar went dark in 42 seconds. Inside Belbek Air Base, panic spread as 87 Ukrainian drones and 7 jets stormed the skies, tearing into Moscow's $2.1 billion fortress. At 5:30 a.m., operators spotted faint blips, dismissed as interference, maybe birds, until the dots multiplied. Then realization struck. A swarm was incoming. Sirens howled. Not dozens, 87 kamikaze UAVs, cheap but deadly, racing in from all directions. Flying low over the Black Sea, then climbing sharply. Clusters of drones targeted guard towers, ammo depots, fuel tanks, and hangars. Pantsir S-1 guns lit the night with streams of tracer fire. A few UAVs burned mid-air, but most broke through. One slammed into the northern radar tower, collapsing it. Another cluster hit the weapon storage hangars. Detonations roared, flames shot tens of meters high, and windows rattled across Sevastopol. Russian soldiers fired AKs and machine guns, but the drones were too fast, plunging in at 200 km/h. Within 10 minutes, 20 UAVs had already hit. Black smoke rose from multiple zones, secondary ammo stores ignited with booming waves. In the command post, an officer screamed, "We can't control it!" But radios failed, jammed by Russia's own electronic warfare. Then the decisive strike. 2 UAVs hit the main fuel depot. A mushroom fireball erupted. Heat felt hundreds of meters away, choking runways in smoke. Defenses collapsed. In under 20 minutes, Belbek's radars, fuel, and ammo depots were gone. Hangars and aircraft burned. For soldiers, those minutes felt endless. Sirens, explosions, and screams merged into one sound, the sound of a fortress torn apart from above. Smoke from burning depots still climbed into the sky as Ukrainian commanders watched live drone feeds. One officer gave the order, "Bring the sky down on them." Moments later, 7 fighter jets entered the fight, 4 MiG-29s from the south, 3 Su-27s from the west. They split into 2 layers. MiG-29s flew low to shield the drones, while Su-27s climbed high, ready to intercept Russian aircraft. Then came Moscow's answer. 2 Su-57 stealth fighters, each worth nearly 100 million, roared from the north. Russian commanders believed they would reverse the tide. Missiles streaked, flares burned, and radar pings filled the air. For a moment, the sky was chaos, but Ukraine had set a trap. A Bayraktar UAV, circling far outside, streamed live targeting data. When one Su-57 rolled to fire, 3 MiG-29s locked on simultaneously. An R-73 missile struck true. In seconds, one of Russia's most advanced jets exploded, plunging into the sea. The psychological shock was instant. A Su-57, Russia's pride, destroyed in open combat. Radar crews froze. Ground defenses hesitated. The surviving Su-57 broke formation, harassed relentlessly by Ukrainian Su-27s until it retreated north. Meanwhile, drones exploited the paralysis, striking towers and hangars. Flames rose higher. The MiG-29s slashed through tracer fire, keeping the swarm alive. Within 15 minutes, the outcome was clear. Ukraine preserved its drones, destroyed Russia's most modern fighter, and kept the assault alive. Belbek now burned both on the ground, fuel depots, radars, hangars, and in the sky, where the wreckage of a Su-57 sank into the Black Sea. The duel in the skies was only the beginning. As smoke and wreckage rained down, the ground at Belbek transformed into a battlefield of its own. Runways were cratered, jagged steel fragments littered the tarmac, and thick black smoke rolled across half the base. For Ukrainian commanders, this was the signal. With drones and jets having torn holes in Belbek's outer defenses, it was time to unleash the next phase: artillery and ground machines. On the outskirts, hidden batteries of 2 S-3 Akatsiya howitzers opened fire. One after another, 152mm shells screamed overhead, smashing into Belbek's southern perimeter. Concrete bunkers cracked, guard posts trembled, and towers that once seemed immovable shook violently. Within minutes, the relentless shelling began grinding the perimeter down. These were not random shots. They were calculated, pounding in rhythm like a war drum, meant to crush morale as much as concrete. When the barrage finally paused, silence hung heavy. Smoke drifted across the shattered gates. Then the second wave appeared. Small, fast-ground robots, no bigger than ATVs. Each was packed with explosives and fitted with sensor-triggered detonators. They moved low, skittering through debris and shell craters. At first glance, they seemed fragile, almost laughable. That illusion vanished the moment one slammed into the Eastern Auxiliary Gate and exploded, tearing steel plating apart and twisting beams into black wreckage. Russian defenders scrambled to respond. Machine guns roared, shredding two of the machines before they reached their targets. But Ukraine had anticipated this. Concealed Stugna P anti-tank crews opened fire, their missiles streaking into the firing nests. Within seconds, the Russian gun positions were obliterated. Now the defenders were caught in a trap. Heavy artillery raining from afar, suicide robots pressing from up close. Every move they made only exposed them further. Then came the moment that sealed Belbek's fate. One robot crept along a drainage trench, nearly invisible, until it reached the main fuel depot. The explosion was catastrophic. A mushroom fireball erupted, flames leaping tens of meters high. The shockwave flipped armored vehicles onto their sides and consumed millions of liters of fuel in seconds. The logistics backbone of Belbek, worth tens of millions, was erased. As the flames rose, Ukrainian combat engineers advanced behind the destruction. T-64BV tanks rumbled forward, their guns aimed at choke points. Infantry squads moved in step with the rhythm of artillery fire, each advance covered by UAVs transmitting live images overhead. Every Russian attempt to regroup ended the same way, spotted by drones, marked on screens, and annihilated by shells. Inside the command post, one Russian officer shouted, "Hold Hangar 3." But before his words could even take effect, artillery pulverized the hangar itself, burying defenders under rubble. By the end of the first hour, Belbek's southern and eastern gates no longer existed. What Moscow once boasted as the steel gates of its $2.1 billion fortress now lay in smoking heaps. By now, Belbek was collapsing from within. Ukrainian tanks and infantry poured through the shattered gates, methodically crushing pockets of resistance. T-64BVs blasted choke points, while engineers planted flags to mark safe routes for medevac and resupply. The fortress, built to resist air raids and bombardment, was unraveling under a ruthless mix of precision artillery and explosive ground robots. But Moscow was not ready to concede. From a northern field command post came the desperate order: commit all reserves, retake the base at any cost. Engines roared to life beneath reinforced shelters. A column of T-72B3 tanks surged forward, their turrets rotating, 125mm guns already thundering as they rolled across shattered runways. Behind them came the so-called spear tip of Russian ground robotics. 9 Uran-9 combat robots, squat and bristling with autocannons, missile pods, and antennas raised to maintain command links. The plan was brutal but simple. Punch a hole through Ukraine's line, carve a corridor, smash the encirclement before it hardened. The site was apocalyptic. The runways were cratered and littered with burning wreckage. Yet the tanks forced their way forward, engines growling, exhaust fumes mixing with smoke and fire. Russian commanders still clung to the belief that one concentrated blow could reset the battlefield. But Ukraine had already prepared the trap. Overhead, Bayraktar drones hovered patiently, feeding live coordinates to hidden 2S-3 howitzers beyond the horizon. As the armored column rolled into the open taxiway, the order came. Dozens of 152mm shells screamed down, detonating in a cascade of fire. The earth convulsed, flames rising in sheets. The first wave of tanks staggered into the blast zone. One T-72B3 erupted instantly, its turret hurled skyward in a column of smoke. Others pressed on, firing desperately through the haze. Behind them, Uran-9 robots advanced, autocannons spitting bursts across trenches and rubble. Russian radio traffic was chaotic. "Forward! Don't stop! Break through!" But Ukraine's ambush was just beginning. Along the runways, concealed Stugna P teams fired missile after missile into the tank's exposed flanks. One Uran-9 was ripped apart, its tracks cartwheeled across the asphalt. Then came the swarm. FPV drones dove from the sky like a storm of wasps, each plunging at nearly 200-kilometer range. They struck turrets, hatches, and engine vents, their warheads igniting ammunition inside. Each hit turned another vehicle into a fireball. Within 20 minutes, Russia's counterattack unraveled. Tanks were funneled into narrow lanes by burning wrecks. Smoke and dust blinded crews. Attempts to maneuver only made them targets as drones adjusted mid-flight, diving onto anything that slowed or turned. Overhead, Ukrainian MiG-29s circled, ensuring no Russian aircraft could intervene. On the ground, panic spread. Tank crews abandoned their machines, sprinting toward shattered bunkers. Uran-9 robots fired wildly into the smoke, unable to distinguish real drones from decoys. Radio chatter dissolved into static, jammed by Ukrainian electronic warfare. Through the chaos, one despairing order cut through the noise. "There's no way through. Retreat!" The last sight of Russia's counterattack was devastating. Burning tanks lay scattered across the runways, some reduced to blackened skeletons, others still cooking off ammunition. Uran-9 robots lay overturned and twisted, antennas snapped. Columns of smoke rose from craters that once were taxiways. What had begun as Russia's final spearhead ended as nothing more than a graveyard of steel.